feel like singing Dora the Explorer. We did it! We did it! Technology has not been my friend. It has not been kind to me the last couple of weeks. So I am just bobbing and moving like Mike Tyson and George Floyd with, George Foreman with grease on their face, trying to figure out how to make this thing work. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this next conversations, millionaire conversation. I'm super excited to have my sis and my friend, Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeever, here with us for this conversation. As you know, we've been having these $1 million conversations, kind of pulling back the curtains on what it takes to build and grow a multi-million dollar business. And so I thought there is absolutely more transparency required about what it takes to do this if there are to be more people of color that are going to become millionaires using business as their vehicle, and more women, because we don't share, right? We get to see the likes of the Tony Robbins, the Grant Cardones, the big boys, right, sharing how they do it, but it doesn't always work the same for us. And people think you have to emulate or be like them in order to do it. And so I thought, why not tell the real about what it looks like when you're trying to get there, what it looks like, the lies, the myths, the misconceptions about $1 million business. I mean, even so many things, like people think you're supposed to, like, when you're a millionaire, you're like rich. And I mean, we are part of the wealthiest people in America. However, we're not like floating in Lamborghinis and all of those things. There's building of wealth that has to happen at this level. And so I want to start this conversation. First of all, I want to thank you for being here. And I want to tell you this story. I don't know if you saw that comment on your post, but my aunt climbed on the post. She was like, I love Dr. Avis. I like watching her on Roland Martin. And I just started cracking up laughing. I was like, wait, where do you know Avis from? And she was like, Roland Martin. So you're famous. Obviously famous in my family. So I want you to share with people who you are and what you do in the world.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, hi, Auntie, and everyone else from the Roland Martin family. Great to see you all. And hi to everybody. My name is Dr. Avis. I am an award-winning author, a media commentator via Roland Martin and others, lots of other spaces. I'm also a what I call a media monetization mentor, as well as a business elevation strategist. And ultimately, I help entrepreneurs understand how to leverage the power of media, marketing online, as well as offline, as well as high ticket sales in order to leverage their genius literally up to the multi-six and seven-figure levels. So that's what I do.
Love it. She's like, and that's what I do. No, she's that sis. She does it well. She does it well. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so to start this conversation off, we talked about this a little bit. I feel like there always has to be a come from. So, there's people who are like, I built a multi-million dollar business and they got a small loan of $1 million or $100,000 from a family member, or they maxed out their $250,000 worth of credit cards in order to make it work. And so I want people to have an understanding of how you got here, where you come from, and how you built this thing. So will you share with them?
Yeah. So for me, I kind of did this thing where, like a lot of people, I played by the rules. I did everything you're supposed to do. I went to school. I got all the degrees, every freaking degree they offer, all the way up to the highest one, right? And I started along my career journey until I hit a brick wall. I got the job, right? The promotion that you've been working, that you work for, that you think is the job. And what I found once I got the job was that it was far from all that it was cracked up to be, right? In fact, it was pretty toxic. It was pretty dangerous from my perspective, in that my job title insinuated that I had power that I really didn't have. And other people were making decisions that from the outside, it would look like it was my decisions. Impacts of those decisions, quite frankly, were at minimum, one could say, unethical or worse, right? And so I would just say that it put me into this bind in terms of my career with regards to, what do I do? I knew I couldn't stay there. And for the first time in my life, I left a job without having that next job set up. Now, I'd always loved entrepreneurship. My dad was a successful business owner, and I've always, admired him because of that. but I wasn't quite sure how I could make that pivot into entrepreneurship. Like a lot of people, I had a side hustle, while I was working. My side hustle was ironically in the media. I had this short form radio show for NPR, and I had that like one NPR check coming in, and then an epiphany hit me one day. Like if I can get this one check, I can get two. If I can get two, I can get four. And so I just kind of started out in the consulting realm, sort of leveraging my skills that I had used in my career previously in the DC area with regards to research, writing, policy focused work. So helping other companies do that sort of work. One of the things I'm most proud of, and something that I do to this day, just because it was my first contract, but also it was one of the ones that means the most to me. I came up with this idea of developing this annual report called the State of Black Women in America report. And it would examine how Black women fare across a variety of different indicators in our society. Pitched that to a friend of mine who happened to head an organization. She liked the idea. That was my first contract. And it just kind of went on from there. And that report still is produced every year. I'm still an editor of that. And so it's like that was the humble beginning. And I will say it's one of those things where when you bet on yourself and you go all in, you will amaze yourself with regards to how far you can go.
I agree. Totally agree. And I think when I hear you say that, it sounds simple, but I think that's the place where most people take themselves out of the game of even getting to seven figures in their business. Because you have to bet on you. It's risky out here in these streets.
Indeed.
Right?
It is. But, I feel like everything is risky, right? That job I had ended up being a risk, right? I didn't realize it was a risk. It felt safe. It felt like the right thing to do. It felt like the right move, but it wasn't. And the bottom line is being an employee is not risk-free. Ask the number of people, thousands of people that probably got their pink slip last month, right? It is not risk-free. So my question is, which risk do you want? Do you want the risk of betting on yourself, of being able to focus your energies, your efforts, your talents in a space that literally is limitless? Or do you want to risk your future on somebody else's decisions with regards to how they're going to balance their spreadsheets? To me, that's ultimately what employment is, if that is seen as risk-free, because let me just disabuse anyone of that notion that that's free of risk. It's very risky. And the sad decision is you have no decision. You don't have the decision-making power about what ultimately happens there. You do have a whole of the decision-making power when it comes to your own business. So that's the risks that I'd rather have. I'd rather bet on me than on anybody else.
I love that. And I love how you said all the decision-making power. All the decision-making power. So there's a journey, right, to getting to your first seven figures. And most of the people that are watching, they're watching because it's a desire of theirs. And they're likely going to be the first in their lineage, their family, their community, probably, to ever accomplish something like that. And there's no how, there's no blueprint. Like they literally are the prototype, right? And so I want to talk, because I feel like this is where the transparency is needed. What was that journey like to getting there? I think, how long ago was it that we met? Was it?
Oh my goodness. Was it 4 years ago?
Okay, I was going to say 5 or 6.
The pandemic. I know that.
Yeah. So I want to say 4. Let's say 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll say 4 years ago. And I know at that time you were like, I'm like 7 figures is what I want. Yeah. And like, I'm trying to get over this like hump, right? There was a ceiling. There was a revenue ceiling. And so I just want you to share the journey of building to that point, and what did it take for you to actually finally get over that ceiling? Because I know there's lots of people watching that aren't at startup. They're not deciding to necessarily leave a job. There are people who are, but then there are others who are at, $250,000 a year, or $500,000 a year, or $750,000 a year, and they've been there for 3 years or 2 years. And
boy, do I know that feeling. Woo, Lord, I know that feeling. Okay, yes. So here is what I found, because I did go through that, where I was able to pretty quickly get to my first six figures. From that, I was able to leverage up to multi six, and I hit a wall. I hit a revenue ceiling that I just kind of stayed there each and every year. I was pretty much landing in the same place. And what I did, just to tell you really quickly, at the very beginning, as I mentioned, I started out with consulting that I was able to easily grow to six figures pretty quickly. And then from there, I started to add on other things, right? I wrote a book. I started to do professional speaking. I started to do other work around coaching, started then coaching in the executive realm, which was kind of close to what my consulting ended up being around because I shifted over to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I was coaching, consulting, I was speaking, I was doing work around my book, I was still doing the media commentary stuff. So I was doing a whole lot of things. And as I did more things, it brought in more revenue. But what happened was I hit a ceiling, right? I ran out of time. I ran out of time. I was exhausted. I was working too much. And I think the biggest shift that helped me to catapult to seven was I made a decision that I wanted to do less things, which sounds counterintuitive to most people. Mm-hmm. But, I got to a place where I became very disenchanted with the whole DE&I space because I felt like a lot of companies talk the talk, but actually they really don't want to walk the walk. And so I made the executive decision just to stop doing that and kind of go all in the coaching space. And what I found with me is when I really focused on this one thing and went at it with all of my intentionality. And once again, in scary moments when other people were pulling back, I was moving forward, particularly when the pandemic hit and a lot of people were kind of know what to do. Some people took themselves out of the game. Mm-hmm. I just went all the way in. And that's where I was able to really go and get my first million. And from there, just continuously move up from there. To me, it's the focus that really, to me, made the biggest difference.
So powerful. And I hope you all are listening to this. So in 2020, when the rest of the world was pulling back, she was leaning in and I was leaning in. We both crossed $1 million that year for the first time. Right now, there is circulation of words about recession and all kinds of things. And I just want to say, and Avis, I'll let you weigh in on this too, that you can mentally take yourself out of the game by just leaning into what you hear instead of focusing on what you know you desire to do and figuring out a way to be of service or impactful during that season. More millionaires and billionaires are made during down economies than ever. You can count them up. It doesn't happen when everything's going well because there's lots of competition and lots of people are in it. But when the down economy goes, the cream rises to the top. Mm-hmm. Right? That's when the real players are playing. So I don't know if you want to weigh in on just that mindset that you had to have during that time.
1,000% true. I mean, here's the real deal. You're exactly right. Most people take themselves out of the game in that moment because they are listening to all of the noise on the news, all of the naysayers, all the people who don't have businesses telling them what they shouldn't do.
Come on.
Consider the source, right? So they're doing all of that. And what they don't realize is at moments like this where you will either do one of two things. You will either make millions or you will miss millions.
Come on. That's a quotable.
Dude, this is the moment, honestly, when everybody else is taking themselves out. Like you just said, the herd is thinning, right? The herd is thinning. Now is the moment for you to really rise like that phoenix and establish your brand, as you mentioned, specifically speak to the needs of that moment. And the market is yours if you're brave enough to go get it. And that's the difference. It's the difference between people who are bold enough, brave enough to go get it, and those who are on the sidelines waiting, quote unquote, for this unforeseen greener pastures that, quite frankly, is there all along, but they're sleeping on it.
Yeah. Like courage is one of my number one pillars for being able to build a profitable business. And it's because transformation or the manifestation of what you're trying to create, it's actually moving and coming to you in the unseen before it manifests in the physical realm. And so it takes courage to continue to bet on yourself, move forward, continue to take action, continue to be of service, do all the things that you know you're supposed to do, trusting that you're on the right track, because when it manifests, it just pops.
Yep.
It shows up. But most people don't have the courage to hold themselves through the unseen. They're bobbing and weaving with their feelings and starting all over again and ditching everything they did before and starting a new offer and a new program. And maybe I need to find a new audience. And, maybe this business, you know what? I wasn't meant to build that kind of business, right? I need a business that's more about this. Like it's insane the way people just, they kill it for themselves and don't even realize it. They're 3 feet from gold. They are, if you've ever seen that picture of the guy in the diamond mine with the pickaxe, and then he's like, never gonna get there, and he turns away, and you can see the little line. All he had to do was like click, click, click one more time. I believe that the reason why only 2% of women business owners ever cross $1 million isn't about strategy.
Preach.
It is about this courage conversation. It's about who they be. More people are willing to start over again than keep going.
Girl, you said a word, and absolutely true. It is all true. It takes mental toughness to operate at this level. It really does. Because just as you alluded to, you have to believe before you see. And the beautiful thing about, and Shameca, you know this, and the beautiful thing about living this life is that we've done it enough where now we realize this is the thing. This is how it goes. Right. Like when you allow yourself to say, I want this. Now, here is what I need to do to get it, and follow that with action, knowing that you can get it. That is different than someone who just says that I want this. And then there, as you mentioned, as soon as they have that first bump in the road, as soon as they have that first disappointment, they're pulling back, they're doubting themselves, they're rethinking the whole plan, instead of saying, let me figure out what happened. Okay. Let me look at my metrics. Let me see what I can learn from what worked and what needs to be adjusted, make the proper adjustments, and continue along the journey. That's the mind shift that has to happen. It's this unwavering belief that it will happen as long as you put in the effort and not be deterred by those setbacks. That's going to happen, because guess what? That's what life is. It happens all the damn time. Nobody gets there directly. Okay. It's really about having the mental toughness to deal with those bumps in the road, but also learn from those bumps in the road so that you can make the proper adjustments to get there the next time.
So good. I love that. So you're here now. You got there, right? You crossed 7 figures during the pandemic.
Yep.
And then, so it was all beautiful, right? Like you've been just like growing and growing and doing all the things. And so tell us.
They say, what's that saying? New levels, new devils, that sort of thing. No, it's not that it's bad. I enjoy it. There are definitely beautiful doors that it opened for me. But I will also say that you do face different challenges, right? There are different challenges at this level. I have a team. There are challenges with that. Sometimes, we make mistakes as the CEOs of our company sometimes in hiring decisions. And I have found that one of the lessons that I've learned that makes the most sense to me is that you hire slow, you fire fast. I mean, some of the biggest, one quote that someone told me, and I said, this makes so much sense. I really took it to heart when she said this. You have to remember, Avis, that you are not in business to employ people. You are in business to stay in business.
I love that. Can you say that again? Because I think I don't want people to miss that.
Yeah. You are not in business to employ people. You are in business to stay in business. Now, was she meaning by that you don't employ people? No, obviously not. It takes a team for you to be able to scale quickly, maintain, and have a 7-figure plus business without you having to do everything yourself, right? Mm-hmm. But what she was speaking to was the fact that oftentimes we give people way too many chances when we know, like, we are seeing all the signs, we are seeing the red flags, we are, doing the thing that we're paying them to do, we're doing all of those things. And it's realizing that you have to know that you have to make the hard decisions, even if it hurt, it might hurt you to have to say it. You have to be, once again, courageous, have those courageous conversations.
Yeah.
You have to make the hard decisions for the health of your business. Your first priority is to the health of your business. And that person is either making your business more healthy or they're hurting it. And if they're hurting it, then they have to be let go.
So I told you all that I wanted this to be real conversation. So I'm a jump in right here. I struggle with this because I have a big heart. So I would always tell people I'm a Taurus. That's my sign. And Taurus are like steady, Eddie, dependable. They always say the Taurus like routines. Well, I'm like quirky and I like to mix things up. So I'm like, I'm not a Taurus. I don't vibe with that. In this season of my life, I'm like, girl, you are a Taurus like nobody's business. You are committed to like, so I'm oftentimes catch myself in the opposite of that, where I'm hiring fast and firing slow. And there's lessons that come with that. And so what I want to share is that there are tough decisions and things you have to do. It's not always easy, but again, this is where courage comes in. Like, here's that thread again of courage, right? People think courage is just like the absence of fear, right? Or that you're not scared of stuff. No, courage is being able to feel the discomfort of knowing what may be on the other side and still being able to move through anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it is the hardest part because we are human beings. We may be, CEOs, badasses, all that good stuff, but we're also human beings. We also typically form relationships with the people who are on our teams. And for me, I take it very seriously that my business has a responsibility for providing the means for family all over the country. That's a huge responsibility, right? And I just ran payroll today, by the way. So, that is a huge responsibility. But you also have to think that the bigger responsibility, because if the business does not survive, then that impacts everybody. So you have to get to a point where you make yourself, and I've learned this the hard way, Shameca. That's why I'm an evangelist in it right now, because I've learned these hard lessons, that it does not hurt you to let someone stay in your business who either is clearly not up to the job and you're paying them the whole time for work that's not getting done, right? Or even if it's a bad energy, because you have to think about, how does the team mesh together? You can't have someone that's kind of renegade or has a negative energy that can infect the entire organization. That has to go too. I don't care if they can sell up to high heaven. If the energy isn't right, they can't be here. True. They can't mess up my energy. Okay. So it's all of these things, and it's hard because you don't want to hurt people's feelings. You don't want to, harm them in any way. But as I mentioned, your first responsibility as the CEO is to the health of your business. And sometimes to ensure that it's healthy, you have to definitely dissect those individuals who are hurting its future and potentially threatening its future.
So true. You've done something I think is incredibly amazing. And I've kind of watched you do it. When I spoke at your event a few years ago, your son was in the room. I did this exercise where I was like giving away $100 bill. He was the only one to come up and snatch it. I was like, all right.
I think it's very money motivated.
I see you.
Girl, please, he wasn't going to let that go.
He was not going to let it go at all. But I've watched him grow and blossom under your mothering and your leadership, and seeing him do more and more in your business. And so, we talk about, in my community, we talk about building a dynasty business that is a business that will span time, right? Where people will remember your name, like the Omaha Steaks, right? Omaha Steaks. Have you ever gotten Omaha Steaks and actually read the paper? It tells the story of how like the grandsons are now running the company. Aww. It's so beautiful. And so being able to build not only a legacy where like if you die or you go away, the business will stop or has to pass on to somebody else, but that your children can actually work in, right? I can't remember what the word is when you're like succession, right? So they would be the successors of the business. And so I want to talk to you, or let you share how you made that decision, and what is that about for you?
Well, I will say that is one of my biggest joys around building this business and having them witness it every step of the way. I did not mention that when I left my job, it was around the same time that I left my husband. And when I left him, I left with just my two boys and everything I could fit in the back of my SUV. So we started over from scratch.
Yeah.
My boys have been there from like Drake, started from the bottom, now we're here.
Yes. My kids are like that too. They're like, this is nice.
For real. I'm like, they have seen it all, okay? Yes. So they know what it's like. They were there from the very first concepts. And my oldest, he has always, as the money motivated one, he has always from the beginning shown a natural inclination towards business. When he was in elementary school, he got in trouble for selling paper airplanes on the playground because kids were spending all their lunch money on this paper airplane. And the man shut him down, right? but I but I saw that and I was like, wow, that's a business. I'm proud of you. And I saw that he had that interest. So one of the things that I did was, even as I was investing in myself, investing in my education, investing in coaches, learning more about how to grow my business, if I had to pay extra to bring him with me so he could come to these meetings, I did. He was in those meetings, mastermind trainings on sales from the time he was in middle school. He grew up to be someone who, when he went to college, he had a business in his dorm room. He ended up having a major internship at a major Fortune 500, 100 company. And what I'll tell you what happened really quickly is his boss called me in one day and I thought he was in trouble. I was like, what the hell did he do? He hadn't even been there long enough to mess up this bad. Like, what is going on? And I went there, and as soon as I sat down, his boss told me, it's like, what did you do to make him so fearless? Boom, mic drop. He ended up being like one of the top salespeople in the region. And a large portion of that was based on cold calling, which is the hardest, like one of the hardest to sell. In my company, he was my top salesperson until he ended up leaving to start graduate school. He just finished his MBA and is now at a major Silicon Valley organization in their sales division, the youngest person and the only Black person in that division.
Come on, man.
And they are responsible for closing just his little team. They close over 22 million in sales per quarter. So talk about what the thing that makes me super proud about how he's landed with that is that when you think about how grownups think about things, like for example, grownups, sometimes it's hard. When I'm working with my clients, I have to make them own the fact that they're worth what they are providing is worth $10,000. It's worth $15,000. It's worth $20,000. Here is this 20-something-year-old who just the other week closed a sale for like $600,000.
Yes.
Now, yes. So what I want you guys to understand, and this is one of the wisdoms that he gave my tribe, and I think it helps people really to, once again, stop being held back by the fear of saying big numbers when you are selling. As he says, listen, you have to remember that just because, even if you can't afford it, it doesn't mean they can't.
Yes.
As long as what you have, it's of value, it's something that they need, it will solve a problem. What does it matter how much it costs? Mm-hmm. And I just feel so blessed that this young man who did my first ClickFunnels years ago when he was in middle school, I think at that time, he did my first ClickFunnels and saw me do my first webinar that had like 0 sales. I mean, literally, he was there from the beginning, has been a part of this business all the way up to and through the 7 and multi-7-figure level. And now I've seen him be able to apply those skill sets to a career that can set him up for a limitless future in terms of his earning potential if he continues to go to corporate, or if at some point he decides to open up his own business. The bottom line is that he knows how to sell. Yeah. And as long as you know how to sell, honestly, you can make money anywhere, honestly.
Anywhere, any day. I always
Hmm.
say you can count on yourself to make money anytime you desire. People try to avoid learning how to sell because that discomfort of the
Yes.
price or of the rejection, and they try all these things. Another reason why people get stuck below seven figures. You're doing all this stuff. You are working on the click funnel. You are working on all the stuff to avoid having to sell. Like some way somebody's gonna find me in the ethers of the internet and pay me money. And yeah, that could happen. But if you knew how to sell, I think selling, the language of selling, the psychology of selling, the experience of selling is woven into all parts of your business. You're
Yeah,
always selling, even in
absolutely.
your messaging, even when you're not, even when you show up in your countenance, it's your energy is selling. Um, Even when you're writing your copy, when you're writing emails, when you're trying to put the webinar together, you have to understand how to walk people mentally through that decision making process. You can't just show up and teach 3 steps and to go, here's my offer. And then the crickets come.
Exactly. Exactly. It's an art to it.
And here's a beautiful thing, it's a learned skill set.
Yes,
You said
absolutely.
something really powerful. Well, it was powerful to me because I heard everything behind it. You said my first webinar,
Yes.
which wasn't your last, had zero sales.
Mhm.
And the way that you get better at selling and the way that you get better at messaging and generating clients and doing all the things is you have to keep doing it again and again. I didn't just wake up knowing how to write copy. I wrote some horrible copy. I did some live streams and webinars and challenges and things where no one showed up, and the one or two or five people that showed up didn't buy a doggone thing, but I did it again and again and again and again. And most people do not have the courage to do that. They let their ego get in the way or what it feels like that they didn't have anybody. I don't know why I can't make it work. And so I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do YouTube videos. And every time you do that, you're starting over from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Repetition is the mother of all learning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you can do it again and again and again and again and again, mastery is on its way.
Yep.
I can't remember the number of times. Do you remember the number of times you are supposed to do a thing before you get to mastery level?
Oh, I've heard it, but I don't remember it. But
Yeah, I
it's
can't remember right now.
the main point though is it's true. And you're exactly right. The challenge is that people, if they don't see what they consider to be instantaneous results, they go to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and they don't do anything enough to be good at any of the things.
Yes. Not one thing. Nothing. It's like I sent an email and nobody responded. So I think I'm gonna like go beyond Clubhouse. Like it's this constant revolving door of like one and done. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't work. You only did it once, right? We don't stay. Well, I'm not gonna put myself in that because I will. I will stay. But most people do not stay with anything long enough to even see a result. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a big, big mistake of like turning things over too soon. They're not, we don't do a lot of webinars anymore, but like if you were to count up the number of webinars and live streams that you've done, how many?
Oh my God. I don't even I don't even know. Like over the years,
Yeah.
hundreds, especially live streams,
Hundreds.
hundreds. I've
Yes.
done webinars. I do launches and I still do launches online. And it requires the repetition to get good, number one. And then it requires the repetition to most expediently grow the revenue.
Yeah.
Like another thing is sometimes when people do something and they see results, then they just decide, sometimes they just stop. They just stop. Like,
Yes.
okay, I've done it. I'm done. I'm like, okay, keep going.
Yes. Do it again.
That doesn't
Absolutely.
mean you're just sitting there and for the rest of the year, you're just chilling on these 4, 5 people. Okay, that's great.
Yes.
Okay,
It's
but keep
like they're climbing Mount Everest and they got to the top, but you got to go down, boo. You can't stay up there.
going. Exactly. I'm like, okay, that's a good start. Awesome. Keep
I
doing that.
love this conversation. I have some questions. I'm looking for them right now that I asked This is the question that I asked. What's the number one question you'd ask a seven-figure entrepreneur over dinner, lunch, or drinks?
Oh, that's a nice question.
And
Oh,
so I have some questions here. I love this one. I'm going to give you this one. It's a little long, but I'm going to go ahead and read it anyway. How do you know if you're three? This is from Elizabeth. I hope I say your name right. Durdur. How do you know if you're 3 feet from gold or digging your own grave? How do you know? Because we're talking about keeping going, right? This is perfect. How do you know if you're on the verge of a breakthrough or a breakdown? What is the tipping point that turns unrelenting persistence into batshit crazy? That's exactly what she wrote. In other words, how do you know when it's time to let go?
I love that question. Oh my goodness. I love her. I just love her energy already, just from what how she phrased that question. So here's the thing, you don't know.
Yeah.
Let me just say this. I think this is in all seriousness, we need to realize that none of us are, fortune tellers.
Mm-hmm.
You do not know.
Mm-hmm.
What you need though is belief in you. You need belief in you, right? And so, if I weren't here today, I'd still be trying. I
So
wouldn't,
true.
I wouldn't just throw it in the towel. It's just not in my DNA. I kind of just have a very sort of relentless type of personality. And I really believe that's what it takes. Now, here's the thing. When you're asking yourself, and it requires the mindset, as you so well sort of help people with, specifically around sales. It requires the mindset of not even considering the fact that you're digging your own grave. I never once thought that. Like that thought, honestly, never entered my mind.
Mm-hmm.
The thought that I wouldn't get here never entered my mind.
Come on.
It was really about, okay, how do I make it happen? What new skill sets do I need to learn?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to do to make this work?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really about believing in yourself unflinchingly and continuing and sort of buttressing that belief with the education, the community, the network, the energy you need. Because once again, if you're around a whole bunch of naysayers, they're going to make you doubt yourself. So you have to put yourself in the right community, with around the right people, around other people who are doing it to help you see that it's possible. Like all of that stuff matters. And when you are surrounded in that space, you will develop hopefully the strength and the mindset to believe that this is going to work. I just need to make it work.
I love it. I want to add something to this. I think that's beautifully stated, and it would be the same thing that I would say. Also, we get so trained and have it ingrained in us to look at everything that's going wrong,
Yes.
that it magnifies all the mistakes and things that aren't going well. And what has to happen, along with shifting the mindset to like never even allowing the possibility of it not happening to come into your mind. And I'm like you, if I wasn't here, I'd still be trying
Mm-hmm.
as well. But what shifted for me along the way is, instead of looking at I had an event and that many people didn't show up, it was like, oh, so this worked to get 5 people in the room. You know what I mean? It's shifting to the win, the success, what went well, so that you can keep what works well and then look for the skill sets and the 2 millimeter distinctions and changes you need to make. Because most people think, oh, it didn't work, and they throw everything out, which is why they're starting over. And if you can master this state of being and mindset of focusing on the small wins along the way, it won't ever feel like you're digging your grave. You won't ever feel like you're just loony and crazy or batshit crazy, as you said, for desiring and continuing to go after what you want. I have taught classes. If I look at my messaging, I found messaging that I say now
Mm-hmm.
back in 2015, 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I've been saying the same thing since then.
Mm-hmm.
And in those times, it was the first time I said it. So I'm giggling when I'm watching the live stream or the video, or how I phrased it. But the repetition of saying it again and again and again over time, now people have adopted the language, right? So people in my community, it's their belief. It's how they see the world. It's mirroring back to me. Back then, I felt alone. I felt like nobody gets what I'm saying, but I was willing to continue to say the same thing again and again and again and again and again. And now it just flows through me. Then I was probably reading it off of paper.
Mm-hmm.
Not only does it flow through me, but it gets mirrored back to me through community and clients and colleagues, right? Um, People now know what I'm known for, and it goes back to what you said, Avis, and that is the repetition,
Mm-hmm.
right? We need it.
Oh
We
yeah.
be in it enough, be committed enough to it. Listen, in entrepreneurship and business, we are the crazy ones anyway, right?
Exactly. Embrace it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because when you think about it, but here's the thing. We're the creatives. I was talking with my tribe about this the other day. You know, when we most of us think of creatives, we think of musicians and artists, and that's true. They are creatives. But
Mhm.
I would argue also that entrepreneurs are creatives because everything that we have grown in our businesses, we created it literally in our minds. We
Yes.
imagined it first. And
Mhm.
we were just crazy enough, right, to believe that we could do it, right?
Yeah.
And that is the difference. And most people are, as we've talked about today, so boxed in by fear that even if their imagination tells them that they want something, they would rather commit to what they believe is the safety of staying small
Mhm.
rather than doing the big things, making the big leaps, even if even may not even be necessarily a big investment or anything like that. Sometimes it's just people's fear of other people's opinions about what they're doing
Come
that
on.
keep, you know what I mean? And to me, that's the craziest reason of all not to do something. But for all any of those reasons, other people have oftentimes will shorten or truncate their desires in order to live this box life.
Mhm.
And what's beautiful about what we do as entrepreneurs is that we have rejected that box. We've said we're going to create our own reality. We go about the process of creating it. Now, people see the end result and they're like, oh, wow. Well, all along the way, it took belief in ourselves. It took that loneliness. It took going through the failures, quote unquote. I don't typically use that word, but I'll use it because other people know what I'm talking about. But when I think about those situations, I think about as those experiences that did not turn out the way that you intended, but that you learned from, that ultimately got you to where you needed to go. Those accumulated experiences. And it is the endurance of those people who are willing to go through that time and time again, then that allows them the space to get better and better to ultimately get to their destination. What makes us seem crazy is that so few people have the guts and the endurance to do that. So that does make us a very small proportion of the population,
Mhm.
but it's this proportion of the population that actually has the ability to create for themselves this limitless reality. And I would rather, have those sacrifices, those quote unquote failures, those disappointments along the way to be able to live the life that I live now, rather than go to my grave with regret, knowing that I wanted to do a thing, but never believing in myself enough to actually go out there and even try to do it.
Here, here. I'm with you. Beautifully stated. One last question. This is from Melissa Edwards Brown. Melissa asks, what was the lesson that shifted everything for you on your journey?
Hmm. Um, I think, to me, it's kind of like what I alluded to previously. The biggest thing that shifted everything for me was realizing that I don't have to do it all. Like I was trying to do more. I think the biggest challenge that I think women and especially Black women deal with is that we come from a culture that very much ingrained in work. Like we come from a history of labor. We come from
Mhm.
this culture that if you want more, you just work more. And that's really what got me kind of stuck with that sort of that multi six figure plateau. Just I just added more things on. And it wasn't until I kind of got to this epiphany, well, let me just let go of that and just go all in here, that lesson was you can have more by doing less.
Yes.
That right there to me is the biggest lesson. And most people are afraid to let go because that means they're letting go of money. And it did mean, I mean, major contracts, you get major contracts with corporations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I let go of that money, but letting go of that money created space for even more money to come in because I was able to focus my effort in one specific area. And quite frankly, in the area that I enjoyed more, right? That I really enjoyed more. So I was able to really focus and pour myself into the thing I most enjoyed doing. And that was really one of the main sort of life lessons that really unlocked the ability for me to get to where I am today in my business.
Such a powerful distinction. I love that you share that. Making more by doing less, because I don't even think it's just, I mean, not just as Black women, we are used to carrying the load, right? We think we have to do all the work and make it work for everybody, plus take care of everybody and all the things. So we have this disposition to work hard. But I think it's also a middle class,
Mm-hmm.
mentality and mindset as well, that you only get to the next level by working really, really hard. And it takes a lot to shift your mindset around that and go, it gets to be easy.
Yeah.
I can have more doing less than I was doing before,
Mm-hmm.
because you actually are making room and space for the more to come in. It's
Boom.
it's very, very interesting, and it is a mindset worth looking at and shifting for yourself and beginning to look at how can I. And it takes courage.
Yeah.
Like you said, you let go of contracts, so there was some things she had to release to basically put a line in the sand, and that line in the sand said, "I don't want to work like that. I
Mm-hmm.
want it to look like this." Right? So it takes courage to do that. It takes courage to be in spaciousness, because you're sitting there and you're making money and you're like, I should be doing something. This is not right. I should not be doing what I'm doing right now. I should not be watching Netflix. I should be doing something. It takes a lot to shift that need to push, 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 and go, go, go.
Yeah.
So this was a really powerful conversation. I want to do just a quick invite, and then I want to do a quick invite to Game On Live, and then I want you to talk about your event, because I want to give people options.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to find good people in the world who share generously and who are real and open and honest. And so I want to make sure that if you're connected to me, you know who and where to go to. So for me, Game On Live event is November 10th, 11th, and 12th. You have until this Friday to get your seat for $297. All you got to do is go to gameonliveevent.com. This is the space that I created because I wanted a space where people didn't have to pay me tens of thousands of dollars to come and learn from me. So this is the space where you get to spend 3 days with me going through some of these mindsets that we're talking about and knowing what it really takes to grow to your next level of profitability, of purpose in the world, and power, because it takes certainty within yourself to be able to not only access and have or create what you desire to create. As you listen to some of the things we talked about, we had to become higher level versions of ourselves in order to be able to even hold the courage, the knowing that we could create the thing. And it doesn't happen in a vacuum. You can try and you may get there, but it doesn't have to be that hard. So get in community and get surrounded. So Game On Live event is, go to gameonliveevent.com, $297 until this Friday, which is September 30th, as of this live recording. Now, Dr. Avis has an incredible event that she's putting on. This is your first one, right?
Yeah.
This one.
This one, yeah.
And it's a Black millionaire
Coach
coach
Lana.
live.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
live. Okay.
Yep.
I when I saw the branding, I was like, okay, I see you. I see you, sis. But would you tell them what the premise of the event is and how they can join you if they so choose to?
Absolutely. So it is, the idea is to help those who are in service occupations in the knowledge industry. So coaches, consultants, authors, speakers, really come up with what we call your $1 million offer. As I mentioned, when I let go of a bunch of things and focused on one thing, that's when I really blew up, right? And so we're teaching everybody that comes how to find their one thing, right? So we're helping them design their $1 million offer, helping them understand how to develop $1 million luxurious looking branding that will attract the high ticket buyer that will buy the $1 million offer, helping them develop their own marketing strategy. And I have my badass copywriter coming and sharing some of his tools as well and tips. And so we're excited about that. That's happening October 14th through 17th on the other side of the country in the DC area at Pentagon City, Ritz-Carlton. And you can definitely grab your ticket at Black Millionaire Coach Live. We are technically sold out, but if you're interested in coming, you can use the promo code Last Chance, because I think I can maybe make space for a few more people. And you can use that to get $800 off admission for the event. So we'd love to have you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So beautiful. It's such a powerful purpose in life, to be able to show people a way that they may not have known.
Yes.
And to actually watch people manifest it and get to walk alongside of them as they do it. So
isn't it rewarding?
yeah.
I mean, it's really freaking rewarding. That's why, you know, and you know it because you do it every day. You know, this thing, it's a beautiful way to live. Absolutely.
One last thing, if you could say one thing to someone who's on this $1 million journey, they got these $1 million dreams, want to be 7-figure business on the brain 24/7, what would you share?
Persist, right? That is what we've talked about today in a nutshell. Persist, keep going, keep growing. You will get there.
Love it. I'm so grateful to you. I am clapping over here and commenting on posts every time that I can. Super grateful that you came in to have this conversation, and I'm glad to be like walking alongside of you on this journey of changing the world, because that's what we're doing. You know, I gave that quote that 2% of women businesses ever cross $1 million. That means 98% of women founded companies never see 7 figures. And for me, I feel like 7 figures is the baseline of scale.
Exactly.
When you can start to make a difference in the world. And so it kind of breaks my heart. But then when you look at those stats, I don't even have the stats for us. And I'm talking about chocolate girls.
I'm looking for those.
Yeah, I don't see them anywhere.
It's
so
hard.
Even fewer, right? And so what happens is we don't think that anybody who looks like us is doing it. And so that's why I'm so loud and vocal about my own results, sometimes my revenue. It's scary to be out there like that. It's not something I do to brag. It's something I do to be possibility. And so I just want to thank you for being possibility in the world.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm so proud of you too, Shameca.
Thank you. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We're going to take off. If you want to submit a question, you can find that post on my personal page. And just put a question on there. We have quite a few on there, but maybe we'll pick your question on the next time we come around. Next time we do one of these millionaire conversations, I believe we have my good friend, Michelle Cooper, who is actually the CFO of my company, but she is a fractional CFO. So she runs her own 7-figure business as well. We're going to have an intimate conversation about what it took for her to build her 7-figure business as well. So see you guys on the next $1 million conversation. Avis, thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching my show, my channel. Here's what I want you to do. If you really love what you've been listening to, I want you to subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment. No, really, leave a comment. Like right now. I'm not going to stop talking until you leave a comment. Seriously.